Arthashastra obviously was a book on statecraft, which integrated both the science of politics with the science of economics. I'm using the word science, not the art. Fine? So it's also about art of politics, right? No doubt. But as a scholar, Kautilya was inspired by the school of thoughts like Sankhya. Though these school of thoughts come very, but in terms of text, they come very late, compilation. But see, many of these philosophies were coming from the ancient times in India, right? The wisdom of sages, the wisdom of various philosophers, obviously, who were not known, but they were there, right? When we say Kautilya Bhai, what was his primary philosophy under which he develops his knowledge? Anvikshiki, right? That is, Anvikshiki is also a philosophy, a method of acquiring knowledge. What is Anvikshiki? Anvikshiki talks about science of logic, the method of logic, right? The method of rationality. The method of evidence, logic, rationality. Anvikshiki, analysis, understand? All the science, the method of analysis. So you understand, see, as a scholar, how Taylor or Fayol or Weber are different from him? Nowhere. He's much ahead of them. He's talking about positivism, right? Rationality at that time, and he says, okay, this should be the driving. This is my driving factor of developing knowledge. I'm not talking about simply some techniques, tools, right, or some methods. I'm talking about generalized principles, right? I'm talking about philosophical elements. But you see, because of the context in which he's writing his book, because of the widespread monarchies which were there was no other format. Fine. The obsession with monarchy, that was also there. The way people viewed the king or the governments at that time, right? He was obviously more influenced by the realities of that times. He was trying to understand the realities, develop general principles, right? By observation, by experience, by analysis, by logic. But he was mostly concerned about the systems of power, right? And what they looked like at that point of time and how they functioned. He was more concerned about that, right? He was not talking about general aspects of power. He was more concerned about power in a specific context. What is that? Monarchy. So you can say his logic can be generalized to all the monarchies, right? But his logic cannot be generalized to all the type of political systems. Are you understanding? He's talking about power, but it cannot be applied to all type of political systems, because then it will lose its meaning. It will be primarily relevant and useful for understanding the monarchies, and that to benevolent monarchies, whatever, whenever they are, it doesn't matter. Obviously, there are not much now, but when they were, right, this knowledge could be used there. So he had a specific context, right, in mind when he was writing his book. Are you getting this? So his context becomes very specific. Context is specific, talking about monarchy, and that too he believed in benevolent monarchy, right? And what was his focus? The focus was understanding of power, politics, right? Ultimately to achieve certain objectives. Or you can say basically objectives of the governments, what they will be, right? So his prime focus was what? Power, politics, system, administration, Raja. Understanding? ये उसका focus था. इसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? Context था monarchy, focus था power, right? So can we say it was basically a book or text of book of political realism. Political realism. Fine. Are you able to understand? Why political? Deals with power, deals with systems of governance, right? And why realism? dealing with power, but dealing with the power in that particular context, the realities of that time. Right? Realism is a philosophy which talks about the power in a specific context. Understand? That power is always relevant. Right? To understand, describe, analyze any system of authority, obviously you need to focus on how power works, how power is used. Understand? That is called realism. We have used this word in the context of globalization also. Realist perspective of globalization, right? It is basically power perspective.
Considering the ethical and societal part is much ahead of the scholars.
Yes, obviously. He had ethical orientation, we cannot deny that.
Society part also, behaviorist part.
He basically wanted the systems of power to work with the motive of serving the society. Right? The only difference was the system of power then and system of power now. The structure, right? The characteristics have changed. Right? Motive remains more or less same. Right? So it is a book on political realism, book on political economy, book on political realism, book on statecraft, right? Book on financial and economic management, yes. Book on public administration, yes, to a large extent. क्योंकि ये सब कौन करेगा? Administration, right? Without administration, they don't make a sense, right? So let us write here a few things. Book on political realism, यहाँ लिखा है, अब इसके नीचे लिखो भाई, right? अर्थशास्त्र, subheading अर्थशास्त्र, meaning and scope. Okay. It could be defined, or sorry, it could be described as a text or a treatise with the following characteristics. Following characteristics. Following characteristics. 1. A book on statecraft. Next. Includes political economy approach. That is convergence of political science, economics, and administration. Administration. Next. Contextual to monarchy. Contextual to monarchy. Fine. That is, okay, a shift from despotic dictatorial to benevolent monarchy. To benevolent monarchy. Next, okay. Book on political realism. Political realism. That is describing the power politics of that times. That is how power should be acquired, used, and protected from its adversaries. Understandable? Next, duties and role of a king or a monarch. Duties and role of a king or a monarch with respect to welfare and happiness of his subjects. Right. Next, okay. Diplomatic and military management. Diplomatic and military management. with respect to the expansion of one's territory and imperialistic desires. Next. Specific principles and description of administrative structure, responsibilities and human resource management within the civil services or public administration. You can write civil services, public administration. Next, okay. Deals with diverse topics. Having relevance beyond space and time. That is, any authority system in today's world, like government, state, etc. May require the similar understanding if not the same. Logic wahi, right? Focus wahi, nature of understanding wahi, right? Target of study same, right? Similar, but not necessarily exactly the same, right? So same sense, same logic, to an extent same focus, but not in the similar environment, not in the exact environment, not in the exact manner, but it is relevant. Ab kya the, right? Topics like within this, or you can write separately also, it's okay. Topics like war, peace, development, industry, trade, corruption, embezzlement, fraud, intelligence, spying, here, diplomatic relations, foreign policy, merit-based civil services, etc. So you almost covered the all range of topics that are necessary to govern. Right? So his context is governing, and with respect to that, he's studying almost everything. So now he obviously covers wide range of activities. To understand, we have to understand by what is his view of the state or the monarch. Obviously, Kautilya starts by understanding the nature of state. It is very important to understand the nature of state so that we can understand his philosophy. Right? Kautilya believes that state is not a product of a contract, unlike the modern scholars called contractualist. The contractualist, like any scholars you know, Locke, Hume, Rousseau, yes, and like Hobbes. So there are contractualists who believe that state is a product of contract between society, between people, right, and those who are going to govern. So let's say system and society. That's a contract, right? Contract kya hai? The contract is to govern. on behalf of the society. In this process, you can say state is a product of bargain between society and the state. So it's a bargain, political bargain, ethical bargain. Many things can be there, right? It is called social contract theory or political contract theory. Social contract means the contract between people, collective conscience, right? Giving rise to a system of power. So the idea was in contract theory that state or government, right, they are working on behalf of the people. They are the trustee of the people. Right? That is the idea. He does not believe in that. He believes the state is a product or is a divine origin. The state existed obviously before these formal systems of state emerged. Right? There was state of God, but kings also governed. They also ruled. They also conducted through what? A system of power. ये बड़ा भगवान, ये छोटा भगवान, right? ये देवता, वो भगवान, देव महादेव, है ना relationship से. So he says कि see, state is natural, state is eternal, state है. So sun god Vivaswat now gives this knowledge to his son Manu, and Manu becomes one of the first lawgiver of our tradition. Right? That is the belief. So actually, the state has not been artificially created by us, right? It has emerged from the divine. That is the idea. So one very simple idea of his is that state is divine. Divine in origin. Then who's the king? No. So he says, what is the role of the state? Why state has emerged? Why the system of power is needed? The system of power is bestowed by the god, given by the god, gifted by the gods, right? Why it exists so that it can eliminate the anarchy of the natural world. What is the anarchy? He says perpetually people are wanting animals. Perpetually we are greedy. Rational economic beings, same thing, right? And there is a tendency of the powerful to control, exploit the weak. So state or a system of power comes automatically, right? For what? For protecting those who are weak from those who are powerful. So for that purpose, you need to establish a system which is much more powerful than all of them. That is the logic. You need to create a superhero. That is the state. So the state is born, right, out of divine intervention, and how the state is now carried forward, how it is now used, right, inhabited, occupied by those who deserve to be on that power. Who are those who deserve to be that? Those who can become kings. Though he did not believe that people are born as kings, but he said, yes, there are qualities which make them worthy of being on that state, being on the authority of the state. क्योंकि वहां पे कोई divine level का आदमी ही बैठ सकता है. Male, patriarchal, all that is acceptable, right? So he said, by someone who is having that divine quality, who is having that divine grace, right? Who is having that persona, only can occupy that position. So he says, what is state? State is divine origin. It is to establish order in the natural state of things. In natural state, the things or the society is in anarchy. But there is a duality in his analysis. But see, state, he believes, yes, is divine. Eliminate the existing social anarchy. Existing social anarchy in the form of Matsnyaya, in the form of Matsnyaya, right? That is the law of the fishes. Law of the fishes. That is The big eats the small. Mike is right. So he believes that the natural state of society is what this is.
It's his idea only that state is divided because to eliminate the social inequality.
Yes.
But in the same sense, he's only creating that.
How is he creating? He says that this is how state of things exist in natural form. Nature comes with chaos. People say nature is peaceful. Nature is not. Is nature peaceful? If you allow nature to operate at its optimum conditions, what will nature do? Right? It will destroy. It will eliminate. It will break. It will shake. It will rain. It will pour. It will grow. No doubt. It will create life. It will destroy life. This is a cycle of nature. So we as human beings, we are trying to control it. Or we are trying to at least, yes, follow the contingency model and think about what can happen in future. But in reality, right, he says yes. So his understanding cannot be totally accepted, but that was how the things were then. Right? That would be the social reality then. Today it is not so, right? Everybody is not trying today. Now, in Indian context, it seems more now post-pandemic. People are trying to eat each other. You see how many scams have happened in the last 4 years, right? How many technology-based scams? Yeah, RBI had to intervene directly now. Fraud apps, fraud schemes, fraud AI, right? Excess use of technology for minting money, manipulating people. Right? Everybody has become survivalist now. Right? They are working with survival instinct, everyone. So see, so there was a time people were nomadic, fighting, right? They were not living an organized life, for example, or let's say to an extent, they're somewhere. These organized lives, right? They were confined to certain elites, certain groups, and that is what he feels. So he feels that state is going to deliver that peace, that stability, that comfort to the society that it very eagerly needs. ये कौन कर सकता है स्टेट, उसमें कुछ भी गलत नहीं है. Remove the state today in India, what will happen? That is his logic. Try to understand. Fine. वो नहीं बोलते कि anarchy है, बोलते हैं anarchy होगी, right? और normally anarchy है, visible हो या ना हो. So he brings the idea of Matsya Nyaya, the law of fishes, or big eats the small, right? Based on that, now he comes in. You see, to have a state, to establish a state, right? Obviously, we need to think of the one who will manifest, who will represent the state. Who will represent the state? So see, state is not born out of contract. State is not born out of contract, right? Who will now deliver you this, what you want, right? Okay. Obviously, he's talking about monarchy as a political system, one of the most able political systems to deal with all this. What kind of monarchy? Benevolent monarchy, right? So he says, yes, king is the one who manifests the divine, right, in human form, you can say. So state or king same hai to an extent, even though we should not totally accept it because Kautilya is not very clear on that. But somewhere he believes that yes, what's king? King is the embodiment of the state, right? State is the embodiment of king, right? Though he says yes, state does not, or state is not inferior to king, right? State is not subordinate to king. तो किंग ही स्टेट है और स्टेट ही किंग है, लेकिन किंग स्टेट से सुपीरियर नहीं है. What does it mean? भाई monarchical state means what? What is the nature of political system? Kingly system. वही तो king का ही तो system है. So he's talking about the position of king, right? Understand? He believes that state or political system perpetually should be or must be or is like a monarchical system. Like we talk in UK, the king is dead, long live the king. The king person is dead. The king position lives till eternity. He's talking the same thing. King मतलब वो आदमी नहीं, right? But king मतलब the system. So any state which has to be successful, efficient, whatever, has to be a monarchical state, right? Whosoever sits on that position, the king, he may not be immortal, but the system is immortal. So he says the one who occupies the throne becomes the manifestation of the state, right? And he governs now. But he believes that yes, state is a bigger idea than just one person as king, right? So he says, well, who is or what should this king be now? At length, he tries to describe so that he helps us convey that who will govern the state will have these qualities. And this will be the nature of state I'm talking about. Those who occupy the throne will have these features, conduct, features, characteristics, qualities, values. And this is what is reflected in the nature of state I'm talking about. So my political system will be actually reflected in the behavior and traits of the king. And those will be the values by which my political system will be guided, or whatever I believe should be a political system. So Cotillard talks about a desirable form of political system, right? Probably one of the most desirable forms of political system. Are you able to understand? He's not saying political systems are like that. He's saying political systems should be like this. Should be. Normative है वो. Scientific tools use करता है लेकिन है normative. He desires, he believes that this is one of the most ideal, best, efficient, ethical form of political system that can ever be. Are you getting this one? So it says to do or to perform the functions, who will be needed? King will be needed. Who will be this king? Obviously, king will be appointed on the basis of merit, certain traits that he'll have, right? Bravery, courage, right? To stand for his people, and so many things he talks about. Right? Technically, king kaun hoga wahi hoga. Says once the king. Now, what will be the features? What should be the characteristics of this king? So he says the king will have three primary functions, and those who are capable to perform them in the best possible manner will be actually the kings. So what evaluates the king's qualities are the functions which he bestows to this position. Understand? What functions this king has to perform. Once we know them, then we'll know what qualities the king must have to govern. Understanding this? So he's saying, okay, bhai, what functions a king has to perform? What kind of people we need to be on this system? Only when we understand what this system, what this position is going to do in the society. Collector क्या करेगा? तभी तो appoint करेंगे collector. So the king क्या करेगा? What should be his conduct? What should be his objective? Right? What should be his primary goal in the society? Why is he there for? Right? So he says to my king's primary duties are Palan, Labh, correct, Rakshan. Palan, Labh, Rakshan. Dand Niti. Palan, Labh, Rakshan, Dand Niti, Nyay. All this, we have seen this. What is this symbol for? Summation. All this should be added together ultimately to achieve Palan, guardianship role. Parents, fine, nurture, nourish the children. Palan, right? Serve them, feed them, take care of them as children. Palan, love, profit, wealth, prosperity, material, secure your children, right? Then he did not mean secure it like today's netas and bureaucrats are doing, right? So he was of the view कि भाई ये king का एक role है कि भाई everybody should be fed, everybody should sleep properly, everybody should have comfort, should have happiness and welfare in the society. But happiness मान लो, लाभ, material happiness, rakshan, protection, right? Physical protection and also the protection from the invaders, warriors, adversaries and others. अभी योगक्षेम लिखो तो लिखा है? ये लिख लिया? ये वर्ड नहीं लिखा? योगक्षेम. योगक्षेम. रक्षण is security, protection. Fine. Physical भी है, territorial भी है. Fine. Internal भी, external भी security. Dand niti, justice system. Right? Or criminal justice system. That is punishment and policy. These also primary duties, decision making by the king. Nyay ho gaya justice, you can say that way. Nyay has a bigger meaning, but you can say this is more like criminal justice, tackling crimes, making policies, using power for the betterment of society. Nyay, giving justice. All this will lead to what? Yogakshem. What is Yogakshem? Yogakshem is the welfare. Serving the society. The concept of Yogakshem is similar to the concept of Gandhi's Sarvodaya. Antodaya. Antodaya and Sarvodaya both. Fine. Sushashan. Right? Swashashan. Good governance. Right? So हम जो बोलते हैं Suraj, Swaraj, all these ideas converge here, right? Welfare, happiness, ultimate comfort and peace for his subjects. So he says ultimately that is the purpose of doing all this. Right? He says, okay, Kautilya says, even in quotes, right? Kautilya says, Yogakshem jahan likha hai uske niche ही, right? Kautilya says that in the welfare of his subjects, in the welfare of his subjects lies the welfare of the king. Of the king, comma. In their happiness lies his happiness. Happiness. He can never do, comma, happiness. He can never do anything that endangers their peace and sacrifice anything to achieve their goals, which is too much, but still. No, but he's not talking about that kind of king actually, right? When you compare this king or this statement, in his happiness, in their happiness lies his happiness, right? In their objective lies his objective, right? In the welfare lies his welfare. He will never do anything which endangers the liberty or freedom or peace of his people, right? And he'll do anything too, but that is not true. He's talking about a practical king. A king, he knows that he's powerful. क्या लिखा भैया? सर इन सैक्रिफाइस अरे स्टेटमेंट तो लिख दो कम से कम. रटा हुआ इतना भी नहीं रटा है मैंने. हाँ, रीड द स्टेट. क्या है सर? Welfare of the subjects lies the welfare of the king. In their happiness, yes. Anything, peace, and sacrifice anything to achieve the social goals. Yes. Sacrifice anything to achieve the social goals. So literally, Kautilya doesn't talk about that king, right? He's saying that the king has unique characteristics, his functions, right? But what will be the defining feature of this king? How he will look like, how he will act. So he says, he will be a Raja or Rajan. Huh? Raja or Rajan, and a combination of Rishi, sage, ascetic, huh? Which we have finally found now. Right? At least we are happy, we are fortunate that we are born in that era, right? Where we have such Rajas governing us. Huh? So he says Raja या Rajan and Rishi, जो राज करे, ठीक है, वो राजा. Rishi obviously is the saint. Rishi basically comes Vigyata from knowledge, right? So he says, I am talking about, or he actually is talking about, a kind of king who is combination of these two, known as Rajarshi. Right? Combination of Raja plus Rishi, who has both the qualities, right? Ascetic qualities, spiritual qualities, moral, ethical qualities, and qualities of a practical administrator, both. Right? It's a very lethal combination. So he is Rajarshi, right? He is not talking about an idealist king, because this is not idealist. This may be idealist and moralist. He's not talking about idealist king, right? He's talking about pragmatic ethics. Pragmatic ethical king. Fine. Pragmatic ethical. Talking about?
Idealistic king.
Who? No, it's not like that. See, you can be good and you can be practical at the same time. How do you think that being practical and being idealistic are totally different to each other? No, it's not like that. Right? Idealism, in the most evolved sense, right, can only be achieved through practicism or through pragmatism. Without that, you cannot achieve it. So one is theoretical, one is practical. He's not talking about a theoretical king. He's not talking about theoretical Raja, that Raja. Fine. So he talks about a pragmatical, ethical king. Fine. Who says, yes, is this king absolute? No. That is where we know that he's not talking about that kind of king, right? Despotic nahi hai bhai, absolute nahi hai. Is he powerful? Yes. Right? All power flows from and into the king. Is he the center of governance? Yes, he is. He is the prominent wheel of governance. Without him, obviously, it cannot turn, cannot run. So he's saying he's the wheel, yes. So can there be a governance without king? No. He doesn't visualize that there can be any governance if there is no king. There shall be the king in the monarchy, right? So there shall be a president of India, there shall be a king in the monarchy. So he means he has to be there, right? Is he despotic? No, absolutely not. He is powerful but not despotic. Right? There's a scholar, he says, see what Kautilya was trying to talk. He was talking about a king, right, who is a constitutional slave. He's not a despot, he's a constitutional slave. Right? What is the meaning of constitutional slave? He's using this with a reference. He's saying, ye king kaisa hai? Dharma, yes. Is bound by the dharma. The dharma makes him absolutely powerful. That very dharma controls him. Constitutionalism है ना visible? Constitutionalism visible है? Constitutionalism visible है भाई, right? Dharma, it may not be the modern rule of law, but dharma is the actual rule of law. So he says the king is bound by the same law which gives him powers. Right? And he believes that the highest law is the dharma. The king is the protector of the dharma. He has moral duty, he has legal duty, he has what you can say administrative duties to not only exercise dharma but also protect dharma. And the dharma does not allow him to do whatever he wants. Understanding? So he says constitutional slave का मतलब क्या कि धर्म से bound है, duty bound है. Right? Katappa. Right? So he is duty bound, he is tied to the throne technically, and all the obligations that come with that. Right? So he's saying constitutional slave in that sense. बोलता धर्म, धर्म के दो aspects हैं. तो religion, which was quite prominent then, it was a theocratic monarchy, religion dominated, right? So dharma had two references. One, the religion. Religious doctrines, and other was the duty. तुम्हारा धर्म क्या है? मेरा धर्म है अपनी ड्यूटी करना. धर्मो रक्षति रक्षता. क्या मतलब बताओ? क्योंकि उसकी जरूरत नहीं है अभी. तो मीनिंग क्या है उसका? दो धर्म की रक्षा करता है, धर्म उसकी रक्षा करता है. Fine. But dharma is not the religion as per today's logic. Protect the dharma and dharma will protect you. Yes. Okay. So this reference is to the doctrines, religious, This is to the duty.
Fast track your UPSC prep with Prodigy IAS. Join our public administration crash course under the expert guidance of Ashutosh Pandey, renowned for his mastery in public administration, starting 7 July 2025. Sharpen your concepts and boost your score. Enroll now at Prodigy IAS.